we introduced DepthCues, a benchmark for evaluating human-like monocular depth cues in large vision models. Recent works have shown that visual foundation models seem to demonstrate certain level of 3D understanding. For example, under linear probing, they can produce high-quality depth maps, indicating that these models have learned representations that encode depth, despite the lack of depth supervision. In addition, increasing number of monocular depth estimation methods leverage the 3D priors in large vision models to achieve better performance and generalization. These observations naturally raise the question of how depth perception arises in these vision models, given that they have not seen depth supervision during pre-training. To answer this, we can perhaps look at how humans perceive depth in a similar monocular setting. Previous studies on the human visual system suggest that we use several monocular depth cues to infer depth, including elevation, light and shadow, occlusion, linear perspective, relative size, and texture gradient. While it's possible that the understanding of these cues emerge in self-supervised or other pre-trained large vision models, the answer is yet unclear. Therefore, in this work, we try to address the research question of how well do large vision models understand and utilize human-like monocular depth cues. In order to evaluate understanding of depth cues, we develop a benchmark suite consisting of a task with training, validation, and test datasets for each cue. Next, we will briefly go through the tasks and datasets in DepthCues. The elevation cue says that objects on the ground plane are perceived farther if they are closer to the horizon line. The underlying concept essential for utilizing this cue is the horizon line, so we adopt the task of horizon line estimation. This is a regression problem where the prediction targets are the offset and slope of the horizon line. The horizon line is illustrated on the top right. Next, the way shadow is cast provides useful cue for orientation and depth. To test the understanding of this cue, we use the task of light-shadow association, where we ask the models to classify whether the red masked object A is associated with the green masked object B. The occlusion cue describes that an object that partially blocks the view of another is perceived as closer. For this, we probe the models to classify whether an object indicated by the red mask is occluded or not. Another important cue is linear perspective. Closely related to this cue is the concept of vanishing point. So we probe models with vanishing point estimation, where the prediction targets are the XY coordinates of the point. Next, depth can be inferred based on our prior knowledge of 3D object sizes and their appeared size on our retinal image. To see if models have such prior knowledge, we use a binary classification task of identifying if one object is larger than another object in 3D. Finally, the texture gradient cue corresponds to the fact that texture on a surface appears denser when it is further away. For this, we use the depth ordering task. To ensure models only have access to the texture gradient cue, we synthesize a dataset using various textures. To probe vision models on object or region-level tasks, we first extract image features and apply object mask to obtain object-specific features, then average pool the features. The averaged features are then fed into a multi-layer perceptron to learn to solve the tasks. For global image-level tasks, we train an attentive probe on all the dense features. For all models on all tasks, we perform hyperparameter search on the layers to extract features from, and repeat the probing 5 times on the best layers. Now let's move on to the main findings from our investigation. Firstly, we found that human-like depth cues emerge in more recent, larger vision models, where self-supervised models DynoV2 ranked 2nd, iBot ranked 4th, and Stable Diffusion 5th. This shows that human-like depth cues can emerge even without explicit depth supervision. To get a rough indication of human performance, we tested ourselves on a random sample from the test sets and obtained on average 95% on these tasks. Secondly, we found that performance on depth cues correlates with performance on NYU V2 depth estimation. This also validates our choices for the tasks and the datasets in our benchmark. Similar observation was made on another depth estimation benchmark, Depth in the Wild. Thirdly, while DynoV2 ranked top 2 in all 5 other cues, It is outperformed mainly by multi-view models on texture gradient Q. While other cues are either at scene level or object level, texture gradient requires perceiving localized surface-level details. We also looked at how the pre-training dataset size impacts models' performance on DepthCues and found that there is a positive correlation if we ignore 3 models that have seen text supervision. However, it should be noted here that the analysis can be confounded by other factors such as pre-training data distribution and objectives. So far, we've shown correlation between DepthCues understanding and depth estimation performance. We further explored whether enhanced DepthCue awareness improves depth estimation. We fine-tuned Dino V2 and clip-on DepthCues and found that this can effectively improve depth estimation performance on NYU V2 and DIW datasets. Please refer to the paper for more details on this experiment. Thank you for watching the video.